Hi everyone, so I have a bit of tragic news to share. While I was recording the video earlier, I didn't do the focus properly. So the focus is kind of out for the rest of the video. But I promise the content is just as good as before. So you can treat it as a podcast, just listen along to the audio. Or if you want, just watch the video but let your eyes relax a bit. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this episode. Alright, hi everybody. Welcome back to another episode. As promised, it's gonna be faster this summer as I find more time to shoot videos. So today I want to talk about another topic that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and it's how do we be well in a world in which we're surrounded by sort of environmental tragedy and just so much pain and suffering, or as I titled it, living in a world with 1,000 cuts. It's really painful to live in a world where negative stories are all around us. You just look around the newspapers every day, literally, it's like a Greek tragedy. You flip through and it's terrible. It starts at home, where there are more stories about land reclamation and building development, and all of that is fueled by sand that's taken from neighboring countries. And often the taking of sand comes at the expense of the environmental well-being of our neighbors. For example, the stories from Cambodia, where because we're dredging up sand from the shores to build stuff like the Jewel at Changi, or just expanding our beaches and coastlines, the shores are getting deeper and deeper over time, and so fish in the river no longer have a place to spawn their eggs. And what happens is that communities that live around those rivers have entire fisheries and just ways of life just disappear in order to feed the beast that is development in Singapore. And outside of Singapore, there's just stuff in the region that's pretty heartbreaking as well. For example, just yesterday, the last male Sumatran rhino in Malaysia passed away, leaving one female left in the country. And I don't know how much you know about biology, but you kind of need one male and one female to kind of repopulate the area, and pretty much not going to happen anymore in Malaysia. So they're not going to make it without external help. And there are only 80 of these Sumatran rhinos in Indonesia, which is the other country in which they are found. So things are looking pretty sketchy for that population. And sometimes I sit and I think about what it means to lose a species, like an entire lineage of evolution that has lasted and changed for longer than we've been around on the planet is no longer going to be around anymore, ever. So that's another tragedy in the region. And globally last week, for the first time in 3 million years, the atmospheric CO2 hit 415 parts per million. Now that might just sound like technical speak, but basically what it means is that this is more carbon we have in the atmosphere than we have ever known. The last time there was so much carbon in the atmosphere, there were no humans, obviously. Sea levels were also 25 meters higher than they are right now. What does that mean for us who are living in a time where sea level rise is pretty much on the cards? How do we go about living when, our way of life might very well be inundated by the actions of people who already have left the planet? So yeah, there's a lot of pain going on, and I don't really want to focus on the pain today. I think today I kind of want to reflect on how I personally deal with this and how other people cope with these difficult times, in a hope that it helps someone out there, because it's difficult to be an environmentalist or environmentally conscious and live in these times. So I think the first and the most important thing that's been emphasized by many different people that I've talked to and I've read is that we need to stop looking away. So much of the harm that's perpetrated by humanity is basically everyone just turning a blind eye at everything that's going on and just saying, you know what, it doesn't affect me, or I don't care, or it doesn't matter. There's a relief in looking at the thing which threatens us, in confronting it and saying, oh hello, there you are. I see you at last in your entirety. You which threatens us and everything that we love about our life and the world around us. Confronting grief and confronting tragedy and pain is really hard, especially when we live in a society in which a fear of pain and a fear of grief is pretty much ingrained in us from the very young age. So it's hard to look at pain in the eye and just say, I see you and I feel you all the way through my body. But imagine having an illness that's fatal to you in your body and just never confronting it at all and just looking away the whole time. The anxiety of that would kill me if the illness didn't get me first. So yeah, I put some thought into different exercises and things that I do through my day, depending on how much time I have, that help me get by and just cope in a world that's filled with so much grief. And I've broken this down to time periods. So at the start, it's if you only have a little bit of time, and at the end, if you have a lot of time, and you can pick whichever scale you're on for actions to adopt. So if you only have 1 to 5 minutes in a day, in a week, in a month, I would say that one of the most important things that I do for myself is just steadying myself in the middle of all the hustle and bustle and taking a moment to think about all the ways in which we're harming the planet, of course, but also in the ways in which it's supporting us, the ways in which we're connected with other human beings, other non-human beings, and all other life on this planet. And it might sound pretty wishy-washy, but a lot of times as well, environmental destruction is just because our connections with the things around us is blocked by either physical infrastructure or ideology that can't really be touched or felt. Thinking deeper about our connections to the planet and our relationship to it is a way to unblock these channels that have historically been blocked by everything that we've learned and been taught. So for example, when I'm riding the bus, I'm often reading a book or something like that, but I'll take a couple of seconds to just stop, and think about the animals that died and decomposed to give the petroleum that fuels the vehicle. Like, I don't often think about the life that goes into enabling my life. I also think about the carbon emissions from that fuel that will contribute to rising sea levels that are lapping at the doorways of people living in India and Bangladesh by the ocean sides. And I reflect about the horde of trees in the forest and the phytoplankton in the oceans that are helping to suck out this carbon and basically ensure that we have a fighting chance and we've got some time to deal with stuff. I think some part of it is also about reflecting that we live in a world of interconnections that's just so much richer than just our social relationships. In a capitalist system, so many of the relationships that we have are just dulled out or ignored altogether. Even social relationships, but that is pretty much, I think, the only thing that we reflect on a daily basis. But acknowledging the many other connections that we have, either directly or indirectly, gives us a planetary web of support that's so much richer and broader than what we might experience from day to day. And it gives a bit of nuance to the age-old story that, humanity is messing up the earth. Make no mistake, we are. But there's just so much more to that in that give and take. In our destruction, we are also finding ways to help the planet, and the planet is still giving gifts to us non-stop, even though we continue to harm and pollute it in many different ways. And so if reflecting on this wider web of connections makes you feel called to act, that's great. But if not, it doesn't matter. Just carry on, get on with your day. But with the awareness that there's just so much more around us than what we can immediately see or feel, and thinking about ways in which we're connected at a deeper level. Because thinking about the way that the planet is supporting us changes the narrative of despair. There is hope, both from our own species but from other species that are continuing to do their work that they do to support life. And sometimes protecting the earth is just about protecting and building those relationships that exist and those processes that exist without us having to intervene too extensively. So that's if you have 1 to 5 minutes in a day. Not a pretty long exercise. But if you have half an hour to an hour in a day, what I'd suggest is talking about it to other people who feel the pain. Suffering alone is the hardest type of suffering. Like, if you've just gone through a breakup or if you lost somebody valuable to you, like sitting alone in your room is probably like the worst thing that I've ever done to myself. Like, it's terrible. And yet so many environmentalists and ecologists and people with connections to the natural world don't really connect with each other beyond just like a shared Facebook post or a casual sarcastic comment about how the world is going to shit again. There's just so much more depth to broach with each other. Sometimes late at night, I'll be lying in bed and I'll be like, "Sup, Max?" And talking with Max about what our present environmental crisis means for us. How do I feel about it? What we can do about it? Ooh, sorry buddy. Here we go. Okay. Embracing each other, the sorrow that exists within us, the grief is such a profound step towards healing. So I've found that to be really helpful. Just talking with people about pain and what I do day to day to get by. And just a quick plug for a bunch of friends of mine who are doing really great work. Climate Conversations is an organization in Singapore that works really hard to bring people into safe settings where they can talk with family and friends about climate change. And if you're interested in hosting a conversation or attending one, drop me a line or drop them a line, and I'm sure they'll be able to fix you up if you have any evening to share with people. So that we're not alone with dealing with the grief that planetary emergency might bring to all of us. Like, we should never be alone. Climate change is going to hit us all. So teaming up and working together with people is one of the best things that you can do. But it's also really hard to fathom a relationship with the world on the whole planet. So what I recommend is if you have half a day of time in a week, a month, a year, whatever it may be, I'd say that I've really enjoyed getting involved with local ways of healing and re-establishing relationships. Just a week ago, I went out on a little kayak and I helped to clean up trash from one of the local rivers nearby. And that was just such a nice experience for me, both being in the environment, but also, giving back in a small way. And it doesn't make a huge difference in terms of climate change. I probably did negligible amounts of stuff. But healing happens on both a local and a global level. And it's also about doing what you can and not getting too caught up about what we can't solve. So often also there's despair because people feel that there's nothing that they can do to help the environment. Well, here we go! Just do a beach cleanup or help educate other people about environmental issues that mean something to you. Just do something, because there's so much that there is to be done, and getting caught in despair and not doing anything is just it's tough. And you know, on a day-to-day basis, our daily habits matter as well. You know, meat, how we transport ourselves, how far our flights are, how much plastic we use, how much energy we use, yada yada yada. Yeah, I'm sure those of you who are still watching this video, which by the way, I'm impressed, like, thank you. Already know far better than I could ever explain in a 1-minute sort of segment. And people say there's only a drop in the ocean, you know, like at the end of the day, it's just such a small action. Does it really matter? Well, it doesn't matter on the global scale of things, but in terms of my personal relationship with the planet and the sort of life that exists around me, I think it makes a difference. And it makes me feel like I'm putting something positive into the world. It's important to remember not to shame people as well. Just because everybody comes from a different place. Like, although I'm tempted to, I don't go out to the supermarket and be like, yo, you, stop buying so much meat. Yeah, shaming just doesn't work well. Don't do it. Unless you're shaming companies. That's great. But yeah, I mean, scaling your impact depends on another action that we can all take every 4 to 5 years, which is voting. You know, vote for the party that gives a shit about climate change. And if neither party is talking about climate change, wait, Singapore, I'm looking at you, then neither of the parties is really thinking about youth or long-term environmental sustainability or any sort of long-term plans. And more pressure should be put on them to do so. Write into your MPs. You can find your MP's contact here. I'll just put like a little screenshot of the webpage and maybe a link. But yeah, political pressure on both companies as well as governments is one of the best ways that we can exert our force as an individual. But you know, the most valuable thing for me, and the one thing that has really made me feel like supported and at home on this planet, is getting involved in the lifetime span work of environmental activism or movements, and joining resistance movements, working on climate action, participating in local climate activities or environmental activities. For me, it's just been a really life-giving experience. So much of our frustration and angst comes from working alone or feeling just helpless in our task. And working in tandem with others who really care deeply about the same things that I do, to protect the earth from something that might be the end of human ways of living forever. That experience has just moved me in ways that I can't imagine. Working with people on climate issues has been the single best thing that's ever happened to me in this lifetime. Shout out to the fossil-free folks. Y'all know who y'all are. And so, you know, if at the end of the day you feel really helpless, I'd say just take inspiration from all the climate movements and rebellions that are popping up all over the world. Join your local one. And if you're in Singapore, stay tuned. We've got one action coming up really soon. And I'm hoping to build a climate coalition moving forward into the future. I usually post about these sort of stuff on my Instagram at aiden.mock. So yeah, keep an eye out there for stuff coming. But you know, I guess at the end of the day, the overriding message that I want to say is we are not alone in experiencing pain. Each and every one of us feels the cuts of environmental wounds to differing degrees, whether we realize it or not. But hiding from it and just like looking away isn't really going to make things any better. Confronting it, seeing what's within our reach, what we can do to mend both our local communities, our regional communities, and our small part of the global community is a way of living in a world that's just so wounded. You know, if something which has given you life is on its last legs, and I guess I'm kind of thinking of a parent, but really I'm also thinking about the planet. You know, if my mom was really hurt, like, I'm not just gonna like look away or walk away, you know. I might not be able to mend all the wounds that she's experienced, but I'd go up and I'd try and see what I can fix and what I can make better in the limited time that I have here. Because doing nothing is just like a really, really painful way of living. And it took me a really long time to realize that. Whew, getting all teary-eyed. Damn. But yeah, so it goes with the climate. You know, we do what we can. Because accepting or acting as if there's nothing that I can do, it's just such a painful way of living. Before I finish, there's just 2 other books that I want to recommend that have been really great for me in this time. The first one is Coming Back to Life by Joanna Macy, and she's got a beautiful exposition on ways to move with grace through this world. And the second one is Braiding Sweetgrass by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's a beautiful exposition on life, ecology, love, gifts, spirituality. Well, it's probably the best environmental book that I've ever read, so check it out if you have time. So that's all for this one. I think it's pretty long, I apologize for that, but I just have so much to say about this. You know, if you weren't entirely convinced about it, that's fine. We arrive where we're needed when we're needed. And I hope that you manage to find a way to live well in this time of grief and suffering. So yeah, that's all for this one. Like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. And let me know if you have any topics that you'd like to hear about in next week's edition. I hope it's gonna be a weekly thing. Fingers crossed. Alright, peace out y'all. Be kind to yourselves.